Are you ready to get your health back but feel overwhelmed by the endless healthcare options? We believe God has called each of us to a specific assignment, and we want to make sure your body, mind, and heart are up for the task. It's time to simplify the process of healing. At Cornerstone Integrative Healing, we offer simple, effective, easy ways to prioritize your health and gain understanding. No prescription pad needed. I'm Kari, a pharmacist turned integrative health practitioner. I'm so excited to have these conversations around topics with my friend, Jenn.
Hi there, I'm Jenn, and together with our team at Cornerstone Integrative Healing, we offer an alternative to traditional healthcare, combining our expertise and experience in the medical field with our knowledge and faith to break the cycles of guessing what's wrong. We know the road to healing, feeling good again, can be overwhelming. You can expect honest conversations around the ups and downs of healing. The truth is, there are so many layers to healing. Because we've taken the time to learn where true healing comes from, we've learned how to help other women discover a different way of caring for themselves. Join us every week for new episodes as we discuss topics that are personal and pertinent to your healing journey.
Hey there, it's Kari here, and welcome back into the Cornerstone Integrative Healing podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Jenn, and we are full steam ahead in season 3. We are in a new series talking about barriers to healing, and we hope you've enjoyed the previous episodes that we've done. If you're just tuning in, you might want to go back and sort of listen to some of the other episodes just to get a little bit of context. But we wanted to do this series because I think sometimes we chase things that aren't really the root cause, and we see that a lot. And God just really revealed to us, the things that we're talking about in this series are truly the physical things that really impede our body from healing. And so that's why we wanted to just shed a little bit of light on it. And so in this episode, we are just continuing with these barriers of healing, and we're going to talk about metals, which heavy metals, you've probably heard of those, or read some things about how metals can sort of really disrupt things and cause some issues. But we're also going to talk about something that you might not have heard of before, and that's scars and how they can do the same thing. So, Jenn, you want to kind of introduce and continue the topic?
Absolutely. So, a lot of this work is based on some doctors who are way smarter than us that really, as they were working with their patients, found these barriers and found how they affected the body and caused kind of mishap, and then led to, organ dysfunction, and then of course physical symptoms. So these aren't our ideas. We're just passing on information that we've learned and we use with our clients. So as Kari mentioned, scars, which is not something that we probably think about as being an interference, but remember, we have nerves running through our skin, right? And so when we cut the skin, we cut that nerve innervation, right? And then the tissue lays back down every which way, right? The lining up of those fibers in the skin aren't the same after they've been cut, right? It's just a patchwork, right? And so nerve intervention can't really get through those scars any longer. And so what you have is pretty much a blockage in your skin of nerve innervation. And so why does that matter? So, and it doesn't matter where the scars are or how you got them. They could be past injuries, they could be surgeries, but they have really found to interfere with how the autonomic nervous system works. And for those that don't know, the autonomic nervous system basically runs the show. So it bridges with the endocrine system, and the endocrine system is how we get messages to our body. So, the nervous system perceives, picks up on things, and then sends messages to the hypothalamus, and then the hypothalamus will distribute the information via chemicals or what we know as hormones. And so it's really important that our autonomic nervous system is functioning, optimally. So from clinical experience, what the doctors noticed was that any area of the skin that was healed by a skin formation had this increased sympathetic nerve innervation. So sympathetics is your fight or flight, right? So there's extra nerve innervation, probably because the body's trying to still properly heal and maybe accommodate for those nerves being severed. And so what happens is a couple things. One is that patch of nerves now act really as capacitors, which accumulate nerve energy, right? So there's more energy right in that spot from the nerves. And then what happens is those nerves misfire or ricochet or fire at will, affecting our organs, the ganglia, which are, other nerves to the areas, and they cause disturbances, right? And so even if you've had a scar from, say, 20 years ago, you had your appendix out, right? They can still sometimes activate. So maybe then it wasn't an issue, but now all of a sudden that scar can activate. So years later, that can be an issue. And so we can either laser those scars in person, or obviously we do a lot of virtual work. So we use something called wheat germ oil. We could take it internally and or rub on the scar to decrease that buildup of sympathetic nerve inflammation. And then that, really causes the nerve to kind of tone down and doesn't cause that misfiring at will, which is affecting organs, right? Because all the nerves are connected, remember. And so if all the nerves are connected, somehow that nerve, whether it's on your knee, it can affect, your heart, it can affect your stomach, your vagal nerve. So it really doesn't matter. So believe it or not, scars, especially if they're severe, they've, Kari, what's the word when there's severe chelosis? Is that it? Severe scar? I can't remember.
I believe, yes,
Yeah.
I think that's correct. Mm-hmm.
So those scars are especially important to treat. But a lot of time for women, your C-section scars can create havoc. Even though they, look okay and it looks like a good scar, it can still cause interference. So scars are, can be an issue if they're not addressed. Again.
You know what I've noticed is that it seems that whenever you're on this healing journey and you've done some healing, it seems like then scars can show up, because it's like your body can finally wants to deal with it, if that makes sense. Is that your experience?
It for me, I mean, it's different for every person. Like sometimes scars will show up right away, and sometimes they'll show up till later. So
gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure every practitioner has different experiences based on how the patient presents. So, but
I guess it kind of depends on where the scar is and maybe how severe it is or whatnot.
Yeah, what meridian it's lined up with. It probably does. Yeah. So you also mentioned metals.
Mm-hmm.
So
this is a hot topic, I feel like, right? I think it's kind of coming, or people are more aware of it now, possibly. I get the question a lot. How do I know if I have heavy metals? How do I deal with heavy metals? Like, it's a whole thing. Everybody feels like they need a heavy metal cleanse.
And they do, just like parasites.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, I get that, but it seems to be more of a focus now.
Yeah. Which is a good thing, because they're pretty pervasive. They accumulate and marry very many sources. I mean, metals are obviously, and the best practice is really to avoid exposure to metals. So if you're not familiar or, heard about metals before, metals there's many of them, but we're talking about things like aluminum and mercury, arsenic, cadmium, iron, lead, nickel, mercury. Did I say mercury? Anyway, so that's what we're talking about when we're talking about metals. So again, as I said, the best practice is probably to avoid them, right? We want to avoid exposure as much as possible, but sometimes we just can't, right? So if you eat fish and are encouraged to eat fish, most of our waters are polluted. And so you're going to get some accumulation of metals. They are, very much in vaccines. So aluminum, and mercury. A lot of people think, and we'll talk about this in a second, that, thimerosal, which is the mercury, has been taken out of vaccines, but I'm going to talk to you more about that, because that's not really the case. Totally. Mm-hmm. So basically, what we see, we do a lot of HTMA. Kari, I don't back me up on this. Do you find almost everybody has aluminum and maybe a little bit of mercury?
Yeah, definitely. And with the HTMA, you're looking to see how much your body is actually getting rid of. Right. So I find it alarming when I don't see any show up, especially aluminum, because we're all exposed to this. So we need to be getting rid of it. So yeah, you definitely want to see some on there at least.
Right. So that's a good point. If you are extremely adrenally fatigued or you don't have the quote unquote, cellular energy to excrete, a lot of times we will see, an HDA maybe where the toxic metals actually go up after they've been working
And
with
that
us
would
for a while.
actually be a good
Right.
thing.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. That means they're getting out of the body.
Right.
So, people might be asking, so like, why are metals bad? Why do I need to be worried about metals? So, metals really interfere with the absorption of minerals and nutrients. They inhibit enzyme production and action. And by the way, we literally survive by enzyme action. So, if enzymes are not working, that's a big problem. They damage nerve cells. And this is just the beginning. So, toxic metals, are really important to address because they interfere with so much. So the antidote, one of the main things that we can do to prevent our body from even uptaking and holding on to metals is making sure that we're getting enough minerals, because the body will first and foremost prioritize minerals over metals. So it will literally, if there's a metal in a receptor site, it will drop the metal to take up a mineral because it prefers the mineral. But if the mineral is not there or they're not available, it'll take up anything that's close, right? In the chemical weight, is that the right molecular weight of that
substance.
Right, exactly. So minerals are your friends.
Yes. And we're so mineral deficient now because our food doesn't have as much minerals and vitamins. And then we're just stressed, and that displaces, minerals. There's so many reasons, but those are probably the main two, I would say. And then we're overloaded with these metals that displace the minerals. It's just a
double
perfect
whammy.
storm, perhaps. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just want to talk a little bit about a couple of the big ones, or Kari, if you want to also.
Yeah.
But aluminum is a big one. As we said, that's usually what we find in most people. It's in food prep, pans, aluminum foil, you're drinking out of cans. And it's
deodorant. That's a big one.
Deodorant, right. Forgot about deodorant. So aluminum is huge. Baking powder. So if you're eating any sort of baked goods, it is severely neurotoxic, especially to developing neurons. So for kids, remember, their brain is growing exponentially. And so that's why it's so critical for that really, small brain in an infant and as they become toddlers and children, to really make sure they're getting enough minerals for growth, but also to avoid uptaking these heavy metals because they are in vaccines.
Yeah, vaccines use it as a driver.
Right. Right. They're called adjuvants. I don't know if anybody has heard that word, but that's just a fancy way to say driver. So basically with the vaccines, they put an attenuated virus or bacteria or whatever they're, inoculating you with. But the body will not create an antibody to that bug, whether it's attenuated or live, unless there's these adjuvants. So basically the vaccines don't work without these metals. That's what causes the body to respond and make antibodies, to whatever the bug is that they've included in the vaccine. So aluminum, especially for infants, because their glomerular filtration rate, which is their kidney function, is very low at birth, and it doesn't reach full capacity until they're about 2. So infants are especially not able to really effectively get rid of aluminum. So that's why it's important, especially for the younger kids. Mercury, as we mentioned, also, since we're on the subject of the vaccine, so thimerosal was used in the production of vaccines, and then they later removed it. But when they remove that thimerosal, and that's basically 50% mercury, what happens is there's still residual levels in the vaccine product. So you're still getting some. And some people are like, well, there's only, 25 parts per million, which seems really low. But when you do the math, 2 parts per billion is considered toxic to most kids. So when they're getting, what's equivalent to, maybe 10,000 parts per million or billion, I should say, in a vaccine, it's extremely toxic.
Right.
So it just doesn't make sense when, the environmental agencies are limiting our exposure to mercury, especially for kids. But then when they're in a vaccine, there's no really limit on how much that we can get,
Right.
which doesn't make sense. So, but we're not going to spend too much time on that. So mercury, also in your amalgam, so in your fillings, they don't really use those for cavities anymore. I would say if you're probably 35 or younger, I'm guessing. I have no idea when they stopped using those.
Yeah, something like that probably.
Yeah. Mercury is also obviously in fish. So if you're eating, the meatier fish, like halibut or swordfish, those types of fish will accumulate pretty quickly. And then also very neurotoxic. And then the last one I just want to mention, because I find it a lot, is nickel. So nickel is used as a catalyst when we hydrogenate oils. So obviously, a lot of our packaged goods have hydrogenated oils, right? Because that makes it very stable on a shelf. And so again, in the production of those hydrogenated oils, they've used nickel. It's also in jewelry, air pollution, baking powder, dental restorations. So again, it's one that I find pretty often. And then the other ones that you'll hear about, or really that lead the list as far as environmental toxins, are lead, cadmium, and arsenic. And so again, we focus on these, especially if there's fungus, because fungus is a protective mechanism against metals from causing damage to the body. So the body is very innately intelligent. There's nothing that the body's not doing by accident. But we do spend time on these metals because they interfere with such a wide range of function within the body. So, there's lots more on metals. I don't want to get too deep because I don't want you to get lost in the woods. The main thing is minerals are your main antidote. So really, really be conscious of mineral dense foods. And then you just can't get enough minerals in food. So then stocking up via supplementation. And ideally those are via food supplements, because minerals have to be chelated. So what that means, chelated means bound to a protein, and only a plant really can chelate minerals. So super important. It's from a food source. So, if you, feel like you have more questions, maybe about metals, please reach out to us. It is a little bit of a deep topic. Not that we're experts by any stretch of the imagination, but it's definitely something that we're very aware of, obviously, when we see clients. So,
yeah. And also, we hadn't talked a lot about it, but whenever, if you do want to do a heavy metal detox of some sort, you definitely want to work with a practitioner, and you want to make sure that your drainage pathways are open. That's a huge thing as well. I know we've talked a lot about minerals, and that is a big part of it too. But if you're really wanting to focus on like binding up some of the metals and getting them out, you need to make sure that you're doing it correctly, or else they'll just recirculate and possibly even cause more issues. So we are going to link a YouTube video that we recorded on drainage specifically. So check the show notes for that. And also we have a previous YouTube video that we've done on the HTMA, which is something that you might want to look into just to see where your minerals are, and just sort of look to balance those out for not only this issue, but others as well. That plays a big part in our ability to heal and just, the whole healing process. So we're going to link both of those YouTube videos. And just if you want to check those out, again, like Jenn said, let us know if you have any questions at all. We're more than happy to try to answer them. And we're going to continue this series in our next episode. And so join us for that. Let us know if we can help in the meantime, and we'll see you guys later.
If this episode has served you in any way, drop a review wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd love it if you'd share any aha moments or takeaways on Instagram and tag us at Cornerstone Integrative Healing.
And if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do so. We want to continue to walk this journey with you. Until next time, friends, know that we're praying for you.